I approach the old lighthouse. The sight of it looming in the distance evokes all the same feelings of shame and pain I've felt every day since. I had everything once, and you took it all away. Well, I'm here to get it back. I remember 10 years ago it was, June 1955, the writing contest. To write an essay on the tragedy of a famous painter from long ago. My entry won, with the prize being a writing contract to pen a more thorough novel about the painter's life and a trip to this offshore lighthouse to be able to focus and write it. Minutes after I arrived, the phone rang, and I answered to a very demanding voice requesting that I start writing immediately and stick to the contractual timeline. As I sat down at the typewriter to get started, I hear a noise from the hallway. One of the doors that was locked is now open, and there is a painting in the back of this room covered in a sheet. I pull the sheet off and see a painting of a woman, but it seems to flicker to the visage of a skeleton for a few seconds. Unsettling. I take the opportunity to call my son and let him know about the aggressive phone call. I also make sure that his medication is working for him. He tells me he's fine, and that I should focus on myself while I'm here. I hang up the phone and sit down to get started on the novel. Back home finally. The rain tonight is oppressive. I just want to get started on my painting, my magnum opus, to finally finish it and be able to move on. I just need to find the keys to my workshop. It seems that the servant has left the key upstairs in my office. I can't help but wander around the house first. So many notes and memories. Everything lost. Everything I did and didn't do to lose it. Everything done to me. My wife, my daughter. I don't know whether it's harder to remember or to try to forget who I let myself become. No, the painting. Only the painting will help me materialize things, to solidify and to move forwards in some manner. I reach my office, grab the key, and head down to the workshop. I pull off the sheet and realize I need to use the perfect materials to make this painting my true magnum opus. I'll have to head out to gather them. Curse this peg leg! I can't believe they gave me a prosthetic that wasn't measured correctly. I just don't have the energy or the time to go down there to get it corrected. I'll just deal with the limp. As I wander through the ever-changing hallways and rooms, I find notes and memories scattered everywhere. To save the date for our wedding. Plans for our exhibition with my art and her music on show. She was a powerful muse, and a beautiful model for my art. But there were also the dark sides later, after the birth of our daughter, after the fire. How I got lost in my painting and how the fire stole so much from us. Her rage, her jealousy. She burned all my best paintings. Do I choose me or her? How do I move forwards? I reached the kitchen and while trying to leave, the cornucopia painting on the wall spilled a bunch of produce all over the counter and floor. Left in the frame was a piece of human skin. Yes, for the canvas. Linen fabric won't do. I need a perfectly smooth surface. I take it back to the workshop and apply it to the easel, and the painting begins to take shape. It looks almost like two flamingos with what I have so far, but it needs more. I find a lift and take it upwards, passing a floor that appears to be on fire. Fire. After the tragedy, she was terrified of it, understandably. Made me spend the money to wire up the house for electricity so we could stop using the fireplaces and candles. Couldn't even smoke my pipe anymore, at least not with her knowing. In an upstairs hall, I find an old lantern. I can use it as a source of light, of course, but it also seems to be able to burn away the dark corruption that seems to be appearing more and more often around the house. Of course, the very next time I tried it, it just coincidentally started the house on fire. I continued through the charred halls and found the record player in the bedroom. I started it, let it play, and a small box appeared on my wife's vanity table nearby. Inside it was a piece of bone. This would be perfect for the painting. I could grind it up and mix it with the undercoat for an excellent foundation. I must head back to the workshop to continue. Applying more paint, it is starting to take form. In this state, it almost looks like a vicious dog or some beast poised to attack. More to be done. Must get more materials. I forgot about the damn rats. They're everywhere. Not sure why the inspectors I called repeatedly never found any. I can hear and see them everywhere. Suddenly, the corruption formed into the shape of my wife in front of my eyes. It felt angry and menacing. All I could do was burn it away with the lantern and rush past where it fell. The fire. Oh, it disfigured her horrifically. Stole her ability to make music. Stole my model and my muse. I pleaded with doctors to fix her, but they didn't do anything. I'm just glad our daughter was spared the same fate. I found a critique of my baby face painting. I didn't need to be so harsh. It was an expression of the childhood desire to grow up quickly. Maybe the facial hair was a tad unnecessary, but it gets the point across. Might have been a product of my drinking that started soon after the birth of our daughter. It was just so hard to manage family and work, but the drinking just pushed us all further apart. Blood, though, it's thicker than water. We'll hold together. So I'll use blood for my painting. A protectant coat to hold everything together. I'll grab the vial of it from my wife's piano and return to the workshop to apply it to the painting. Writing this novel has been a challenge of introspection. I'm trying to reach into my own experiences to see how the painter must have felt. What it was like after having a child, for example. How that affects and changes a person. In the hall, the wind had blown the window open. Just as I closed it, I saw the image of a flickering face briefly outside and a voice that said, "I have your truth." The isolation of this place is really getting to me. I miss my son and hope he's managing his medication all right. I decide to call him, and as we're talking, the power in the lighthouse goes out. I hear the voice again. It's claiming to be my muse and that it's here to help me with the book. I go downstairs to turn the generator back on, and the voice returns again. It says that it helped the artist, the musician, and the actor, and now it will help me. That my voice will be heard. I only have to choose. The voice beckons me to the painting I found earlier, of the rat woman holding another rat, like some sort of rat queen. She tells me to choose, to accept her help. I feel so stuck with this book, so I say out loud, "I do." She responds, "It is done," and the phone rings outside. It is my son, checking in after the power outage disconnected our call. I tell him I'm fine, feeling a sudden vigor and passion for getting back to work, so much so that I cut him off as he says "I love you," and I return to the typewriter to continue. Halfway there. This painting is coming along beautifully. Maybe this will be the one. I must finish it. Out in the hall there are crayon marks all over the walls. The images dance and move. I see one of my daughter's old drawings. It's a pink horse. I remember scolding her for not drawing it properly. Horses aren't pink. She needs to do it properly or not at all. I shouldn't have gotten so angry. I kept having to apologize. Her room was so full of dolls I'd bought her for that reason. She also made so much noise, and that damn dog too. It was so hard to focus. My behavior was clearly having an effect on her though. She was always so quiet and reserved. I remember she was terrified of having her hair cut. Her hair! That would make the perfect brush for the painting. I stumble through more rooms and find the news article about the day I kidnapped her back from the childcare home. They took her away after my wife... Well, they didn't trust me in my mental state at the time to take care of her, so they took her away. But I wasn't having that. She's my daughter, and she's all I had left. I make my way into her bedroom and have strong visions after I turn on her toy carousel. When I come to, I find an old lock of her hair on the bed and return with it to the workshop. The painting is really taking shape now. I feel like this time will be the one. Only a few finishing touches remain. So many more rats out here. I knew we were infested. They're in every hall, in every room, in every corner. What does it matter anyway? I'm just as messed up and infested as this house. I remember my fame fading. I remember becoming more and more desperate, more and more buried in my work to try and reclaim what I once had. But it was so much harder after the fire. After my wife lost her gift and her passion. It beauty. I had nothing left to work from. What's more, trends in art were changing, and I refused to embrace those new ideals. I had it right. They were wrong. The old ways are best. At this point, the corruption form of my wife began pursuing me again, as I searched for 3 green cogs for the mechanism to open a massive door. Running around to collect them, I fix the gears and proceed through the door and emerge in my office. Babyface is on the wall in here. I'm beginning to see it was a terrible idea. The walls and ceiling of the office expand and distort as I climb higher and higher. I cross some hanging platforms to reach a phone, but it falls, and soon the platform below me does as well. I wake up after the fall and find a dried-out human finger on my desk. It should be perfect for applying the finishing touches, smudging and smoothing. Excellent! I take it back to the workshop and add these details. Nearly there now. One last part that makes the painting become art. The outside observer. I must find an eye to behold my work once it's finished. The corruption has consumed the whole house now. It's everywhere. I find a new portrait I don't remember painting. Some sort of rat woman, and hear a new voice telling me to reach deeply into chaos to find the inspiration to finish the painting, to create. I find more notes from my wife, how she's spiraling into depression. Nothing makes her happy anymore. Music, her daughter. I should have seen the signs back then. Instead, we just fought more. Fought so much. Until that night, when I came into the washroom where she had locked herself in. The knife was sitting on the sink. She was already gone. Sitting in the washroom now, I plunge my head into the cold water of the bathtub, and it shocks my thoughts into clarity. She's gone. My daughter, taken away, and all that I have left is my painting. I need to finish this last piece. I need to resolve these conflicting feelings within myself. Insanity runs in my family, and it has clearly caught up with me given the last few hours since I returned home. I awake from my dazed state and see a jar in the bathtub. It's the eye I need, the final observer. I return to the workshop to finish my work once and for all. As I place brush to canvas to finish the final strokes, I am pulled backwards to the top of a set of stairs. I proceed downwards to see a door filled with warm light, but it closes on me as I reach it. I take a door to the right instead, leading through corruption, as I reflect on the excuses I've made in my life that have kept me away from warmth and love and light. Down, deeper and deeper, more doors being closed off, more corruption. I finally return to the workshop where the rat woman's voice tells me to finish it one way or another. I put the brush to the painting one final time, and the portrait I see in front of me is of myself. A masterpiece, immortality. All the suffering I've been through, all just a test, all worth the effort to arrive here. I feel resolved in this moment. I'm back. The book was done. I had finally figured out an ending. I rose from the typewriter and headed into the hall to stretch my legs. Notes and letters are laying around. Debt collectors looking for money I still owe. Readers thanking me for writing the book about the painter, how it helped them to work through their own struggles as an artist. 10 years have gone by since I wrote those 3 books. I'm back at the lighthouse, picking up the phone to call this mysterious agency and demanding that they bring back my son. I threaten that I know how to kill the Rat Queen. I know how to break their alliance. I'll do it with words, my own words. I return to the typewriter room and look at the desk on the side wall. The other 2 books were there, the ones I wrote about the painter's daughter and then his wife. I pick up the daughter's book first and begin to read through them. I remember the screaming, my father. He'd scream at my mother, at his paintings, or just at the universe. When I was finally taken away after everything that happened, the screams still followed me. I was told insanity ran in my family. I came back to make it stop. Turning on my flashlight, I start looking through the house. I don't know what it is I think I'll find in particular. I just want resolution, closure. So many memories flood back to me, feeling so small and afraid all the time. my father trying and failing to remember the songs my mother used to play on the piano. I entered the workshop and a vision forms in front of me of my father's old easel. Two options before me, my old crayons or a paintbrush, and the perfectionism of my father. I try the crayon first, but hear my father's disapproving voice in my head as before. So I grab the paintbrush instead and try again. I see broken down walls all around me, a maze of passages. I find a tube of paint and bring it back to the easel, improving upon the artwork and hear my father's approval of my progress. Down more passages, pushing a ball up a hill of rubble, I find more paint and add it to my artwork. Back out into the maze again, I hear and see visions of our old dog. I see fire. Grabbing more paints, I find my way through the walls and flames, back to the easel and paint even more, my father sounding more and more encouraged in my head. The visions in my head fade and I reflect on my memories. I know my father meant well. I know his perfectionist nature was just intended to see me succeed, to be the best I could be, to succeed where he had failed. He just had a hard time showing that properly. I enter the bedroom and remember my mother's pain after the fire. How playing her music was the only thing that seemed to soothe her for a time. I find pieces of my old crayon drawings as well, depictions of my feelings at the time, the anger of my father, the hopelessness of my mother, the loneliness I felt. Why are these still here? I also find my father's storage room, and it is full of portraits of my mother. How many paintings did he make of her over the years I've been gone? Was this grief, or was it still anger, or perfectionism? Any of those may be true. I enter into my old bedroom and have a flashback of a painting session with my father. He was painting my portrait and had told me to keep facing him. He always got so angry if I looked away or moved. I tried so hard to sit still. This time I would do it. I would fight against the pulls of fatigue or distraction. He told me a story about an evil witch and her wicked spells that would hurt me if I looked away. But I never did this time. As he finished the painting, he looked at the face he had captured and saw my fear. He apologized for having scared me. As the vision passed, I realized that my father wasn't doing these things to be cruel. He just could only understand the world through art. He only realized what reality was in front of him if it was expressed in a painting, like my fear. Layers of fear on a canvas. In my father's office upstairs now, I remember my mother trying to teach me piano. She was so kind, but with every wrong note, we would hear my father scream through the house to stop the racket. I see myself wandering through the house as a child and finding pieces of a drawing my father did of my mother. I find my Rolly cat toy, but it is missing a wheel, so I search around the room to find it and fix it myself. As the cat rolls away, I hear my mother and father fighting again. My mother accuses my father of finding her disgusting and ugly after the fire, but my father admits that while he does find her ugly, it's not because of how she looks, but because of how it has changed her personality and attitude. I see now that he truly did love my mother after all, but again, his means of expressing it were a totally separate problem. I entered the final room upstairs, the playroom, and found what I'd come here to find, a resolution, closure to my thoughts. My father was a broken man who made plenty of mistakes, but here in this room was an apology, expressed in the only way he knew how, a painting. I was ready to forgive him. I was ready to move on. I took the painting off the wall and knocked down the candle holder, setting the house alight. I ran back out the front door and finally was able to let my past burn and move forwards. I hang the portrait on my wall at home, and as I watch my own daughter coloring, it looks beautiful. I only wonder why she chose to paint it pink. The first time I played the piano, I knew it was everything I needed. I knew it would set me free. I awoke in our bedroom and emerged into the hall, chains hanging everywhere, my piano strung up on the ceiling. I find notes I wrote, poems, about how happy our lives used to be. Getting married, having a daughter. Then the fire that took everything from me, took my music away. I entered the storage room and found an old portrait my husband made of me. Is that how I used to look? Grabbing a flashlight nearby, I proceed through the doors and halls, through the chains. I find a bandage and get reminded how it felt to be bound up, constricted all the time. how I had to give up playing my violin for cross-stitching to help my recovery. It was torture. At the end of the hall, a human form emerges out of the corruption, but it's not me. It's some sort of long-toothed rat woman. I shine my light at her to burn her away and move onwards through the halls. A syringe on a table nearby brings traumatic thoughts of all the injections I received for the pain that I was in. I find a note in the closet downstairs about the panic attack I experienced after the lock broke in the bedroom door and I was trapped inside. I have so much anxiety now about feeling trapped and confused. It feels like it's happening everywhere, and everybody else is somehow causing it to happen. In the basement, I find my piano, and as I sit at the keys, I see my burned and disfigured hands in front of me, no longer able to play as they once did, bound and handicapped by the very skin they're wrapped in, melted and fused. The piano is pulled away into the blackness, and I find myself walking through an elevator shaft, somehow on its side, with the lift car chasing me. The shaft tilts, and I fall. I awaken back in bed, my husband beside me now. He pleads for us to get help. He can't do this alone, his work and our daughter to raise, and he's not a doctor. But I refuse. The medicine will help, my loved ones will help, it'll just take time. I enter the library, so many books, so many paths of escape, temporary distractions of the mind before I wake up again, locked inside myself for another day. A desk materializes in front of me, papers, ink, a pen on top. I know I need to learn to write again, but it's so hard, so painful. The halls keep taking me back to the main foyer, like the house wants to keep me trapped here, but there are fewer chains. I must keep pressing forward, into my daughter's room now. I hear her footsteps running through the halls behind me. I see her ahead and I chase her, but she goes places I can't go. I wish I could play with her, be a mother to her, but how can I with these broken hands? I see her crying in her room, and I want to go to her, but I can't. These hands, chains. Back in bed again, I get up and head back downstairs. More of the chains have vanished from the house, but I still feel them on me, holding me. In the kitchen, I find the corkscrew I hid from my husband. Anything to try and stop what all of his drinking is doing to him, to us. Notes in the halls out here remind me of the emotional emptiness I feel. I no longer have the energy to play with my daughter, no longer have the motivation to get out of bed. I can deal with the physical pain now. It's the emotional hole that is holding me down. My body, my prison. What is the point in getting up? The chains wrap around me again, and everything goes black. I pace around my room. My husband's portrait of me is here, the lady in black. I hate it. It represents everything I'm not, everything I was, everything he wishes I still was. I will beat her. I will become more perfect than her. Outside, a massive space, with splintered wooden paths connecting islands made up of various pieces of rooms. Massive chains hang suspended in the air. As I cross from island to island, I find more and more reminders that everybody sees me as less than I was, that I am worse than I was. My handwriting is worse. The violin screeches when I play it. I'm not mothering my child in a healthy way. I'm ugly. I'm disfigured. I sit at my vanity as the mirror shatters in front of me. A knife on the countertop. I strove to be perfect. I achieved perfection, had everything I wanted, and it was taken from me. I make my way down to the washroom. I am nobody now without that perfection. I close the door to the bathroom, and finally, on my life. I step back from the shelf and out into the hall. Reinvigorated, I go in to see the painting of the Rat Queen. I tell her I can write without her and take her painting down off the wall. As I do, rats scurry out of the room. Above them, on the wall in the hallway, is her painting out of nowhere. I take it off the wall too, but it disappears from my hands. More of her paintings appear and disappear through the corridor as more rats scurry about. I rush back into the writing room and see that the photo of my son on the desk is now her portrait. I sit at the typewriter and vow to end this. I will finish this screenplay about the actor and leave this damn contract behind. I wake up to the sound of pouring water and creaking wood. The halls around me look waterlogged and rusted. I think I must be on a ship based on the decor and layout. I enter a theater as the curtain parts, showing a strange woman pulling the head off a young boy, stating that I almost had it, as everything goes black. When I come to, I'm in some sort of ship's cabin. There is a chalkboard in front of me telling me to build the character. Seems I'm preparing for some big role. Upstairs is a small personal film projector and screening room, with a reel already laid out for me. I load it up and started playing. It tells me I've been acting all my life, that I've worn many masks and famously played many stories. But all of it was to hide one true character, one true story, one secret that I don't want to remember. I acted to run away from that past, but now I was here on this ship to remember, to shed my layers and masks, to remind myself who I am, and to choose. Exiting the cabin, I find a note from the company that runs the cruise ship explaining that the director of the project I'm here to film has requested our section of the ship be clear of passengers and crew, so I shouldn't run into anybody then while I'm working. I decide I should probably make my way to the filming set on board. On the way there, I remember my agent telling me that this director makes his actors do a lot of extra work to build their characters before filming begins. Lots of exploration. He told me to just go with it, but as I'm already here, I figure I have no choice. As I pick up items through the upcoming halls, I hear the voices of children echo in my mind. Lily, an older sister, and James, her younger brother. They are playing pirates. Lily is the brave Captain Baines, and James is the reliable Mr. Hardy, her ship's quartermaster. It seems they're sneaking aboard a ship, perhaps the one I'm on right now. I finally reach one of the sets, a pirate ship in the middle of a cardboard sea, but it's empty. Nobody is around. I board the fake ship and up to the wheel to give it a turn. After a vision of the walls of the cruise liner fade away and a large red sun off in the distance, I return back to the wheel. Leaving the room, up ahead I find a flashlight and a couple mannequins posed through a window. Shining my light on the mannequins seems to animate them, and one of the figures shoots the other. In the next corridors, the walls are tight and maze-like, with moving spotlights pacing back and forth. I think it best to avoid stepping underneath them. With all the odd things going on here, I don't trust what might happen. After more set pieces and ship's corridors, I come into another, larger projection hall with a slide projector set up. There is a series of slides with a deer on display, but one of the slides shows a door as well. I leave it on that slide only to see an actual door materialize on the screen in front of me. With nowhere else to go other than back, I decide to try my luck and press onwards. I keep hearing a voice through what must be an intercom, likely that of the director, guiding me in ways to build my character. I find a bullet and an old flintlock pistol, and two mannequins are seated up ahead. The director guides me to shoot at the right one, emphasizing the word right. So I fire at the mannequin on the right side as it flies off of its chair. The director seems pleased with this, and I continue onwards. I see a young boy that sounds like James from In My Head before, and he tells me I shouldn't play with other people because she doesn't like it when I do that. He then runs away down the hall. It seems those kids really did stow away on a ship, as I heard what sounded like them almost getting caught by a crew member. Suddenly, a large, formless mannequin started chasing me, so I ran. The flashlight I found does seem to be able to stun it temporarily, but I keep running all the same, closing doors behind me to slow down its pursuit. I eventually come to a room with another film reel for the projector in my cabin, as well as a painting that flickers with the face of some grotesque rat-like creature. I hear a voice telling me that without her, I'm just as lost as they are. Does she mean the two kids? I find that I'm back at my cabin, and I head upstairs to put the film reel in. It confirmed that the children were in fact stowaways, fighting to survive on the ship by searching for food and avoiding capture. I wasn't in a much better position, as out in the hallway the mannequin began chasing me again as well. With no other means of escape, I jumped down an open lift shaft. I heard the children again, looking for food down here, but unfortunately all that they found was rotten garbage. Further into these machine rooms, I found another slide projector with another doorway which I promptly passed through. In another large room that looked like it must have been an engine room were a couple of puzzles I needed to solve. one with odd rotating rings of gears, and another was a clock of some sort connected to an adding machine. I needed to spin the hands of the clock and add up to the total on the display above. The mouth of the massive machine opened up and I entered inside, escaped another pursuit by the formless mannequin, and found a news article about some recent scandals I had been involved in that brought up questions of my mental health. I soon found myself in some large cargo area filled with crates and cages, with the sounds of animals scuffling and growling all around. Climbing up to a series of catwalks, I saw a shining grail chalice appearing and disappearing in various places, always vanishing as I got just within reach. Finding my way to yet another slide projector, I was somewhat more unsettled by this one. It depicted a stretchy, elongated baby with an eerie smile, crawling back and forth on a theater stage. One of the slides appeared to have some sort of grating on it, so I stopped on that one and a vent shaft materialized for me to crawl through. At this point, the director chimes in again with another moral choice. Do I listen to my instinct for survival and take the food from the hungry dog family to save my life? Or do I listen to reason and allow 3 lives to be spared for my 1? He directs me to listen to instinct, so I follow his direction and choose to take the food, which appeases the director, and I move on. I have noticed that at some points my field of view is in full color, and other times it is in black and white. The ship itself too seems different when these changes take place, and I wonder if perhaps I'm getting visions of the ship the children stowed away on, that it is different from my own, and their adventures happened in the past. I wonder. I reach several halls and chambers that are filled to the brim with golden coins and goblets. Such a wealth of treasure! What could be of greater value? In the final room, a massive pile of treasure, and at the very top, the glowing chalice from the catwalks. I climb to reach it as it vanishes in my hand, the gold around me now replaced by piles of fresh-caught fish. I begin to see, true value is defined by need, not want. For the children on this old ship, hungry and alone, this pile of sustenance is greater than any pirate gold. But of course, with every rise comes a fall, and I hear the sounds of the children being found and chased. I myself emerge in what looks like a new set piece for the film, a large cityscape, but there is a large beam of flame that periodically pierces the darkness in here. I make my best effort to move from shadow to shadow and stay out of its path. Up yet more scaffolding, I finally reach another room full of treasures and another film reel, which I've begun to see is my goal here. My cabin is near at hand, as is the projector, so I load the reel in. The film explained that the children boarded their ship to run away from their past, a past they worked very hard to forget and move on from, but it caught up with them and tangled their minds. The only way they could be free was to remember and to cut themselves loose from it. I fall down a shaft and find myself in an old, decrepit house. There is a key to the kitchen on the ground floor, so I use it to find a large cooking pot boiling in the center of the room. It seems I need to find some ingredients for the soup. Through the next door is an odd farm scene, and in the various hallways off of this room I find a rotten brain, a rotting animal arm, and a mechanical heart. I take them back with me and throw them in the pot. The children scream that the beast is awake as I run back through the farm field and into the upper catwalks of a movie theater. It seems the children's father runs it. I find a key to the bedroom above a vent up here, and I crawl in, only to fall back into the lobby of the house. I enter the bedroom now to find a drawing of a vicious mouth. Moving the mouth to various positions around the room, I am able to find a necklace that seems to have belonged to the children's mother. The father doesn't sound like a pleasant figure, however, with specific contempt towards James for some reason. Back to the theater scaffolding again, and another key. I continue this loop several more times, traversing various rooms through this mystery house. I also learn a great deal about the children and their family. The mother had complications during childbirth and died giving birth to James, the younger child. She was very kind and loving, but after she died, the father blamed James for her death and treated him awfully. Not that Lily was treated much better. One day while the children were playing, Lily fell and landed on her head. When she awoke afterwards, she stated that who she used to be is no more, that she can now become someone else. Lily spoke of sneaking out with her brother at night to watch the stars, and seeing that he had a gift within him, a flame, to entertain the world, to become a powerful presence that would turn 1,000 heads. But then, their dreams were taken by something she called vicious. James asks her what he should do if something happens and she's not there. Lily tells him to listen deep inside for her voice, and she'll always be there for him forever. I finally emerge from the house into a large garden, and I hear Lily in an argument with her father about leaving her and James alone. I find the father's fake eye just as Lily calls him a one-eyed freak, and that literally blows the roof off. I look up to see a massive one-eyed monster that is blowing the same beam of fire that chased us through the skyscrapers. I run through the hedge maze, dodging the beam until I reach the other side. I find a flower on a pedestal, as Lily reminds her father it is both the anniversary of the mother's death, but also James's birthday. The father only had enough money for one gift, and decided to spend it on his wife instead of James. I find one last room with a humanoid mask complaining of great pain, but Lily simply tells James that they should leave. There is nothing left for them here, and that their adventure is just beginning. I pick up the nearby film reel and return to my cabin. This reel was brief, and spoke of the children facing one final act, and then a silence. I return to the halls of the ship now, and once more the rat-like voice speaks to me and tells me that without her, both myself and the children have no future. I climb a large stairwell and am chased through many more hallways until I reach a point where it becomes clear that something terrible happened to Lily on board the ship, and she felt betrayed by James because he wasn't there to help and protect her like she always was for him. But Lily comes again to depend on the flame within both of them, a safe place they can retreat and protect themselves, and let the scars heal. While Lily was away, James began conversing with an imaginary friend, and he implores it to help him find Lily. I strongly suspect this voice is the same rat-like voice that I also keep hearing, pretending to be friend when it is really foe. James finds new strength to lead himself, and after crossing a large sea set with a bunch of cannons, I find the final reel as well as one final picture of the rat woman on the wall, surrounded by rats looking up at it. Some sort of rat queen she must be. I hear James crying here that she lied to him, followed by Lily's whispering leading him through the ship as I return to my cabin one final time, only to find it covered in barnacles and seaweed, as if it had sunk to the bottom of the ocean. The reel simply explained that the children had finally taken the chance to look back into their past, to learn from it, to start moving forwards, that they could no longer hide in the void of their fantasy to protect them from reality any longer. I begin to wander through this sunken vessel as I hear the director one more time. He tells me that this ship represents my indecision, my hollow self trapped in the past, the potential of what could have been. There was no film. This was just an effort by my inner self, the director, trying to reignite the spark of the flame that I once had. The formless mannequin that chases me is myself, all the roles that I've played, but never coalescing into one true character, myself. I remember that night, the ship we stowed away on. The engines caught fire during a terrible storm. We were separated. Lily told me to escape, but she didn't make it off the boat. She died with so many other people, but James didn't. I didn't. I went on to bury the past behind all the roles that I played, never having the courage to build the character, to look backwards, to be James, until now. I pass through the halls of the ship for the final time, and I emerge onto a stage, and a child is there with me. We finish our scene to uproarious applause. I head backstage and look into the mirror, at all the accolades of roles past surrounding it on all sides. But the man in the mirror, who is he now? Is he finally James? The crate behind me begins to shake, and as I look, it explodes into blackness. I stand for the final time from my typewriter, work complete, lighter in hand. I approach the painting of the Rat Queen and set it alight. She appears right next to me and pushes me down as she walks away, out the front door of the lighthouse, and locks me inside behind her. She tells me I must stay here and focus on my writing as I sink to the floor and weep.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this POV story perspective on the new Layers of Fear remake. As always, I appreciate all your views, your likes, and your comments. You guys are awesome. I look forward to seeing you in the more lore video for this game very soon. And as always, my friends, be legendary.